Welcome back, everybody. It is currently 12:48 in the morning, and we're back with some more math. I'm going to be posting as consistently as I can, but might not be every day. Who knows what I can do? I already missed a day. But we'll be starting with Basic Algebra Lesson 2, which will hopefully be a shorter video because it mainly focuses on the same concepts with linear equations, y equals mx plus b, manipulating it, and hopefully they all tie together well. Again, if you have questions, let me know in the comments. I'll be able to explain them. But we'll have our various levels of difficulty, and hopefully it'll cover basically everything that you'll need to know, at least to a high yield, so the majority of them. So before we start, or I guess as we start, we have y equals mx plus b, right? This is the general linear equation line, right? If you have something like this, a linear equation, something that goes straight, it doesn't really matter which way it goes, it just has to go straight. M is going to be your slope, b is going to be your y-intercept. Sorry for the poor handwriting. And then x and y are, well, your x and y, right? So from here, let's look at this question quickly. We'll have, what is the equation of the graph shown? And this way you'll need slope and y-intercept, right? Y-intercept is where it intercepts the y-axis, and slope is going to be your rise over run, which is just your change in y over change in x, right? And you can use 2 points here. So we have we have 0, negative 8 for here, or sorry, negative 8, 0. And then we have 0, negative 8. Well, for change in y, we're going to do negative 8 minus 0. We're going to go this way. Doesn't matter which way you go, but make sure that both sides you're doing it the same way for each side. So if we do negative 8 to 0, we're going to do 0 minus negative 8. So if we have negative 8 minus 0, that's negative 8. 0 plus 8 is 8. So the slope is negative 1, which, as you can see here, it does make sense because negative 1 means that it's decreasing, right? And this slope is decreasing. So just based off of that, this is the only slope that's negative 1 here, right? Because negative x is the same thing as negative 1x. If this is your m, you have y is equal to negative x plus b. You don't technically need b for this, but it's good to know that it's negative 8 right here, so you can even just put negative x minus 8. Doesn't matter. At least for this question, you only need to find the slope. But good to do the whole thing anyways if you have time. If there's no questions about that, we can get started with the next question. So it says this is going to be in a similar format where it has an x-intercept of negative 4, 0 and a y-intercept of 0, 86, 3. So we know if we were to graph it, it would look something like this, negative 4, 0, 86, 3, right? So what you can do, draw the line. It looks positive, so this makes sense. But in order to find the slope, change in y over change in x, right, we can do 86 over 3 minus 0, so it'll just be 86 over 3, but for the sake of clarity, I'll do this. And then you have 0 minus negative 4, so you have 86 thirds over 4. And as some of you may know, when you divide by 4, it's the same thing as multiplying by 1/4. So you'll get this to 43 because of simplifying, so you get 43 over 6, and that'll be C. Pretty quick, right? Hopefully the rest of these will go by quick, or I can explain them quick. Okay. This is going to be one that applies the formula of a linear graph. So we'll have y equals 1/4 27x plus 15 plus 7x. So if we want to find the slope, we're going to need to make it look something a little bit like this, right? And how do we do this? We combine like terms, right? Hopefully you guys knew that. So we have, if we do this, we have to distribute, so you have 27 over 4x plus 15 over 4 plus 7x, because that's not distributed, right? So because you're looking for the slope, you can ignore whatever the y-intercept is. It doesn't matter. All you need to know is what's under x. So you'll have the slope is equal to 27 over 4 plus 7. So that is 27 over 4 plus 28 over 4, which will just be 55 over 4. So that'll be your slope. And that's it, right? Because when you rewrite it, it'll look something like this: 55 over 4x plus 15 over 4. And these match, right? B is 15 over 4. 55 over 4 is M. Few more conceptual questions. So we have ax plus by is equal to b, and they want the graph for when 0 is less than, 0 is less than a, but a is less than b. So how do we make it look like one of these graphs? These are all y equals mx plus b, right? So how do we get this to be y equals mx plus b? This has the y already, right? But we're going to need to move this to this side. So we're going to have by is equal to negative ax plus b. And if you divide this by b, and this by b, right, you will have y is equal to negative a over bx plus 1. So since we know it starts at plus 1, we can eliminate this right away. All these start at 1, right? The y-intercept. But what do we know about not just negative, but just a and b? If a is less than b, right, that means whenever you have a fraction, it's gonna have to be, a over b is gonna have to be between 0 and 1. It might be 1/2, it might be 1/3, we don't know, right? But since it's negative, that means this has to be between -1 and 0. Hopefully that makes sense. And if we have this, if we look at this slope, right, if we're looking at rise over run, this one is down 2 over 1. So this is -2. That doesn't work, right? That's too negative. And then we have this one, which is exactly 1, actually. So this is -1. And then this one looks more like down 1 over 2. We can't have down 1, right? Because we know that a and b cannot be the same. This cannot be 1. The only one that works is c. This is going to be one of the more tricky conceptual ones you get. Hopefully when you see these type of questions, it won't be, what's the word? It won't look terrifying. That's what I'm trying to say. Because a lot of these, if you see a type of question, you can see these and immediately think, okay, slope, y-intercept, what do I know? So that'll be how you approach these questions. Something that I didn't go over in the last one, because this is more on y equals mx plus b. Oops. Because it's more on y equals mx plus b is, I talked about parallel lines a little bit, about how slopes are the same, right? Slopes same, which means they're parallel. But how do we know if it's perpendicular like this? It has to have the negative reciprocal. Well, reciprocal. Looks awful. Pretend that says reciprocal. So if you have x equals 2, that is this line. X equals 2. Or, sorry, not this. If you have this, x equals 2 is something like this. Right, because it's any point where x equals 2. So the slope of this is just up and down. It's actually undefined. But if you were to do the negative reciprocal of this, it would actually look something like this. And what do we know about this line right here? Does it go up? No. The rises 0 for however much you run. And it doesn't matter because 0 divided by anything is 0. So it would be A. Okay, if you are here so far, congrats. We are going to be done with the graphing. There might be a later video on graphing itself or just going through more problems. Stay tuned for that. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that yet. But we'll just cover the rest of the basics for lesson 2. So this one, it says, how many liters of a 25% saline solution must be added to 3 liters of a 10% saline solution to obtain a 15% saline solution? So we know that there are 3 liters of 10%. So if we were to do something like this, this is how much saline would be in there, right? 10% of 3 liters. And they want to know liters of a 25% solution. So that's going to look something like this, where we don't know what it is, but it's 25%. And this is liters, right? And they want, in total, a 15% solution. So that means you're going to have 3 plus whatever you have equals 15%, which means 3 plus x and 0.15. This plus this is going to have to equal this. So if we write this out, we have 3, 0.1 plus 0.25 x equals 3 plus x times 0.15, right? So this is going to be 0.3 plus 0.25 x is going to equal, and now you have to distribute, so this is going to be 0.45 plus 0.15 x. So if you were to distribute this, and you want x on, not distribute, but you want x on one side and everything else on the other, right? So let's move this here and let's move this here. So if you were to move 0.15 to this side, you would have to subtract 0.15, right? To cancel out this. And then to get this to this side, we want to subtract 0.3. Which is the same thing as 0.30, right? So you'll have 0.10x is equal to 0.15, right? Because you're subtracting. Divide these both by 0.1, because this is 0.1 times x, right? And you will get x is equal to 1.5. So you want 1.5 liters. This one's going to be a little bit more tricky. This involves you having to make your own equation. If you have questions about where I started, or if I can do more problems like this, feel free to let me know. This is probably one of the more medium to maybe hard difficulties for this type of questions. I'll show you one more question that's kind of similar to this, where you have to make your own equation and use reasoning that you already know. Okay, last question for tonight, because I want to go to sleep. So it says a total of 2 squares each have a side length r, a total of 6 equilateral triangles, right? So there's 8 shapes in total, have a side length of t. None of these squares and triangles share a side. The sum of these perimeters of all of these is 210. Which equation represents? So you know these all end in 210. That's a given. We can't eliminate anything based off of that. But if they're asking for perimeters, what do we know about squares? A perimeter of a square is equal to the side plus the side plus the side plus the side. You know all the sides are the same, so this can just be 4s. But this is one square. So how do you find 2 squares? You just do 2 of them. So it's 8s. And, sorry, in this case it's actually r. They use r instead of s. So this will just be r. And you can actually see just based off of that it's c. But let's look through the rest just to help explain the reasoning. So it says triangles have a side length of t. So what do we know about the perimeter of a triangle? and equilateral triangle. They're all the same sides, right? So the perimeter of one triangle is going to be the side length plus the side length plus the side length, because there's 3 of them, right? Or 3t. So if we have 6 equilateral triangles, it's equal to 3t times 6, which is 18t. And all of those together will equal 210, right? So 8r plus 18t, it makes sense because the second part is correct, equals 210. So those two, probably medium, again, medium to high difficulty. You'll probably see some other examples of this where, again, you'll have to make your own equation and base logic from what you're given. If you want more problems like that, feel free to let me know. If not, hopefully this all made sense. Again, these are the type of questions you'll usually see, and this is what will be covered. If you want anything else based off of what I see in this lesson too, feel free to let me know. This is what I saw from the practice problems, generally what's going to be tested and variations of this, but definitely remember the linear equation formula. That will get you at least 5 or 6 questions at the very least. If that's it, have a good rest of your night, afternoon, whenever you might be watching this, and take care of yourself.